Kevin Martin, your UT admissions guy. I'm filming today from Bali in Indonesia, which is where I live most of the year. It's my Saturday morning, which lines up with US Central Time around 8 p.m. on February 7th, Friday in 2025. And so today's the day of UT's big decision release, and I just want to offer my congratulations to everyone who did gain admission. I hope UT is one of your top choices. If you intend to live on campus, definitely fill out your housing application as soon as possible if you haven't already. When you accept your enrollment deposit, you will have access to your housing contract where you can pick your preferences of residential halls. Register for summer orientation. Usually the earlier in the summer the better, because courses will tend to fill up throughout June, July, and August. I'm also maybe not on my A game today. I had a really weird night last night. We had a fire at about 11 p.m. on the directly on the electrical cables. There was a giant blue flash, and I had to literally run outside with my own fire extinguisher and put out the fire directly into the electrical pole. So my fiance and I were awake until 3 in the morning or something. Thankfully, everything's okay. So it's been a bit of a weird morning for me, as well as it has been for many of you on your Friday evenings with the UT decision. Okay, so for those of you who were denied, waitlisted, or offered a pathway program like CAP, I will discuss those outcomes and also potential UT major changes for those top 6% students who did not gain their major, who might still want to enroll at UT, and also external transfers who want to enroll at one university and try and get into UT. I'll do that later in this video, but I first want to say, for those of you who didn't gain admission, just take care of yourselves. Get some sleep, binge your favorite TV series, play your favorite video games, or chill out on Discord, or do whatever you need to do for a few days. And parents, just give your children some space and allow some days or maybe even weeks to process. There's really no action that you need to take right now. Calling, emailing, or showing up to UT is not going to reverse your decision. One big change that UT has made that I'll address initially is they're allowing for a wait list this year, and I waited for an hour before making this video because I wanted to feel out the wait list, and I'm actually really happy at UT, so kudos to UT. We have wins and fails. This video is going to have some fails, but I want to give a win to UT for implementing a wait list, and it is very thoroughly explained on their admissions page if you just look on waitlist, and anyone can join the waitlist. It doesn't look like they're doing the appeals thing this year, thank God, because I'm getting a lot fewer emails. Usually when the decisions go out, I get literally dozens and dozens of emails asking about appeals, and my inbox is pretty quiet so far, which, given that I had a stressful last night, I'm a little bit relieved about. But yeah, it looks like you can just join the wait list. UT is going to give you a space if they have it available. If you want a desirable space like computer science or most STEM majors or business, I would not hold out hope that you're going to get the wait list. UT is going to give those spaces based on the number of spots that they have available after they assess who enrolls between now and the May 1st enrollment deadline. Thankfully, they're also very explicit not to send additional recommendation letters, not to update your resume, or anything like that. They're in bold, these things will not be reviewed, and that's probably because they get thousands of appeals in previous cycles, and none of it makes a difference. Apparently, if you want to update your academic info in 200 words or less, I guess they mean there your fall senior grades, but if you did increase into the top 6%, for example, that's not going to be considered. And so that 200-word academic update, I'm going to assume, is not going to make a difference. Also notably, they say that they can offer notifications all the way through the end of July, which I also appreciate, because this is one of the only transparent things that UT's literally ever done in the last 10 years. Because I've been a former UT counselor who worked there for 3 years in early 2010, and I've sort of been around UT admissions by helping students through my service, text admissions. I've helped over 600 families apply to UT and universities nationwide, and so that's one of the things I'm going to discuss in this video, is a little bit of a history lesson and a background on various UT missteps. Before we go there, the last thing I want to announce is this should hopefully be the last poorly quality uploaded on one take video that I make. I'm actually really excited to announce I'm going to release a new video series for the first time in literally 7 years, since 2018, and I've identified a professional recording studio here in Bali. So I'm going to record and produce like 30 or 40 videos that I will start releasing in May. So for anyone with younger brothers and sisters, siblings, those external transfers, you can expect some new, like legitimately high quality content. So I'm really excited to do that and actually like put some effort into this YouTube channel. So let's overview where we're at this admission cycle. So fall 2025 legitimately, genuinely did receive not just the largest number of applications ever, which was around 90,000, I think it was like 92,000, but it's also the highest rate of change from one year to the next. Like in previous cycles, like 21, 22, 23, 24, it went from like 60 to 70,000, so it was a few percentage points changes. But this year, yeah, a huge increase for around, I assume, the same number of spaces. Usually UT admits around 17 to 18,000 applicants. And for context, in fall of 2018, so that was 7 years ago, UT received 47,000 applications. So it's literally doubled in less than a decade. So those increases primarily came actually from non-Texas residents, so out-of-state and maybe international students who primarily were applying for STEM or business majors. And so STEM and business has always been competitive at UT, but like it is everywhere else in the country, those majors are substantially more in demand and desirable compared with the non-STEM majors. So I've made other content about this STEM, non-STEM bifurcation or division. And so even at places like Rice or Stanford who claim that they don't admit applicants based on their major preference, like that's just not true, because if Stanford did that, then like 3/4 of their class would be computer science students. And so even at Rice and Stanford, I'm like certain that they have some awareness when they're crafting the class around not over-enrolling those STEM students, because history and communications and other majors still need those spaces. So I estimate that out-of-state admissions rate is probably around 5%. I'm sure there's people out there that want to crunch the numbers. It doesn't really matter whether it's like 3% or 7%. It just basically means UT for out-of-state is super competitive. I also estimate that non-automatic Texas resident admissions rate, so those students outside the top 6%, in previous cycles it was like 10 or 12%. I'm going to assume now it's maybe high single digits, so it could be as low as 5%, maybe 8%, 9%. But UT does not explicitly release this admissions data publicly. I even emailed like the information office and I said, hey, could I get the computer science data going back the last 10 years? Just admitted denied students, and they just responded like, we don't provide that data to the public, and I asked why, and I didn't get a response. So anyone that can find that information or who wants to submit a Freedom of Information Request Act, email me and we can have a conversation. Nevertheless, I expect that those majors in electrical computer engineering, biomedical engineering, mechanical, computer science, those programs are probably around a 10% or lower admissions rate. Business is tough, but it's not as competitive, maybe like 15% admissions rate. So you're going to see in your communities on Reddit that there's like lots of top 1%, 1,500, 1,550 students that did not get in. It happens every year. As a result of these increasing application numbers, UT has lowered their automatic admissions cutoff from top 6%, which is what it's been for like 6 or 7 years, down to top 5% for that class of, or fall 2026, so the current juniors. Okay. One piece of advice I want to share is for those of you trying to make sense of why you did or didn't gain admission, or parents who are like crawling Reddit or College Confidential trying to figure out why the outcomes are the way they are, honestly, you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to figure this out. Every year at UT, at many universities, there are highly anomalous outcomes in both directions, meaning you're going to see like super talented students, top 1%, 1580, great resume, who are going to get denied. You're also going to see applicants with like maybe below average academics, like top 10%, 1400, who will get in like to those same majors, and there's no way to explain it, right? And one thing is, it's a statistical argument where in a sample size of 90 to 92,000 applications, in a very non-transparent review process that I call a black box, you have an input of like tens of thousands of students who are then like datafied into millions of data points, and then you have all these outputs. It's like a black box, right? So it's impossible to know why a given student did or didn't gain admission. And when you only have access to like people in your immediate surroundings, you just have way too small of a sample size to make any strong conclusions. And so The most helpful way I find to think about outcomes is just like luck and unluck. Like some students get really lucky, some students get really unlucky. That's how I see it with my clients, because with my clients we're controlling for the essay variable because they're all submitting really good essays, and every year, and that's even happening right now, there's some students where I'm not confident or maybe are borderline who do get in. Other students I'm really confident are going to get in that don't. It happens every single year. You can see me literally saying the same thing from like my fall 2018 and 2019 decision release videos. And even when I worked for UT, and in theory I had access to like every application, like I personally couldn't tell why a student got in or not. Like I'm not even sure senior management could do that because of the way that they literally place everyone on a spreadsheet and then like draw a line. And so it's just way too much for you to untangle on like an interpersonal or even like a small community basis. So if you did gain admission, like just be graceful in your achievement, and don't gloat, because be careful about posting stuff on social media. Obviously you want to celebrate, but maybe be mindful of not contributing to that FOMO machine. For those of you that didn't get in, like just be gracious, be complimentary, be a good sport about things. I really dislike how college admissions can drive a wedge through families and communities and schools, and it's a big result of the lack of transparency in this process. And it just like isn't healthy or helpful to continue to litigate like months or even years. A lot of families will be like, oh, like my kid got denied 5 years ago, and like we're still thinking about it. And it's easier said than done, but it's just like not helpful to go down that road. Okay. Let's talk about what I call D-Day, the deferral day, D-Afferral day. Okay, I made a video a few weeks ago and where I observed that 90 to 95% of UT Austin applicants were deferred. That was annoying to me, like my most viewed all time, and so I think that also is a signal that this was a truly anomalous situation, because you don't see similar videos about like Michigan or Stanford, because those universities have a normal or sensible or typical early action deferral process, where at Stanford you have like some students that get in, you have like bunches and bunches of students who were denied, and then you have maybe 10 or 20% of those early applicants who are deferred to the regular decision pool. Michigan does the same thing, like most universities do this, but UT, just by like deferring almost everybody except for the 4,000 or 5,000 students they admitted, that means that like literally 87 or 88,000 students were still waiting for those offers. So I just kind of want to revisit those deferrals, especially for those future applicants who might be viewing this video. So since UT also admitted December 1st applicants who are like in theory regular decision, and also since the 40 Acres Scholars Program continued inviting applicants to apply for the program after January 15th, I have strong reason to believe that UT just straight up dropped the ball. Like you were either unable to accommodate the increase in application numbers, or they just like or didn't hire enough people. But literally in like almost every single cycle, UT delays releasing some or most of their decisions, so this isn't surprising. However, like where they screwed up is they should have never made a public guarantee to release all October 15th early action applicants by January 15th. And so that was their mistake. In previous years, they just released everything sort of at the end of January. And I'm also going to share about kind of a little bit of like going down memory lane around like recent UT cycles to show that this is not just a one-off or anomalous thing, but like part of a much bigger trend of honestly just like incompetence. So I feel all of your frustrations about taking the time and effort to submit those October 15th early application deadlines. I know it also was very complicating for those of you who applied early decision 2 who were still waiting for UT but didn't have that January 15th guarantee. So people are emailing me about Rice, for example, who I think should be releasing their decisions for ED2 soon. So it really left a lot of people not just like in a frustrating anxiety waiting game, but also like this admissions purgatory had real implications for your future decisions. So one thing UT did not do this year is they didn't trickle out decisions in waves over many weeks starting in late February. They did this in almost every previous cycle, but like in some ways the like deferring almost everybody was even worse because it gave this false public promise of January 15th. So a lot of people felt like the rug was pulled out from under them. And so at least when applicants heard back in the past in previous cycles, it came like as an unexpected and pleasant surprise. It's just like, hey, like in mid-December they got in and they had no idea why. And so literally if you watch my previous videos of these admissions releases, like I complain about the same stuff. It's always like a little bit different, but it's similar dropping the ball, and like nothing ever changes or improves in this process except the waitlist. That's like the one thing I'm like, yeah, like good job. But here's what's crazy. What makes it more audacious is UT Austin sent an email yesterday saying that they reviewed applications ahead of schedule, which is just like Orwellian doublespeak. Okay, like imagine telling your teacher or your boss that like, hey, I'm going to submit that project on January 15th, and then like you don't, and then you say 3 weeks later that you're a week ahead of schedule because you've moved the goalpost to February 15th, but like nobody asked for that, and if you did that in your workplace, like you would get a poor performance review or you would get fired if it was an important thing. So the whole thing is just absurd. Like UT's public relations team is like 10 out of 10 with their spin jobs. So let's take a trip down memory lane, and I want to like examine some other UT missteps. So even back when I worked at UT, I think this was fall 2013. So when I was there working, it was in that spring 2013. It was one of the first times they did a proper waitlist. They put a few hundred applicants on the waitlist. You were invited to apply, and they admitted some of those waitlist students after May 1st. But then they withdrew the offer because like someone like mistakenly hit a button or something. Even as a UT frontline counselor, we had literally no explanation. Like not at all. I had like people like calling me reporting this, and I'm like, this sounds so outrageous. Like, how can this even happen? And it took like a week for senior management to explain what was going on. So like there was literally disgruntled, angry families like showing up to the Dallas Admission Center, understandably like looking for an explanation. And what was crazy is then at the end of May, like UT eventually granted admission to those students that they didn't intend to admit to begin with. And so then you had this like gigantic mind scramble of like, oh, I thought I was going to go somewhere. I already sent an enrollment deposit, and now I'm going to withdraw from the university I've already committed to and then enroll at UT like in June. It was super crazy. So yeah, that was one thing I personally experienced at UT. In fall 2019, UT did receive a record number of freshman applicants, like from 2018. I think they received like 5,000 or 6,000 more that year. And this was like when the appeals lottery started to happen, where this was when I caught on that they used appeals to sort of fill these final spaces, but it gave the illusion that like the appeals essay that you wrote actually made a difference. But what was crazy is they used the appeals to fill their final class, right? And then they denied some appeals over the summer, and then they granted appeals or admissions offers like unexpectedly to students in some instances who didn't even request an appeal to begin with. It was like super bizarre. And then there was also like in 2022 and 2023 like multiple appeals. So like especially in 2024 there were students who were like, oh, I appealed like 4 times and got rejected every time. But then there was a few people that got in, so then that gets out on social media and everyone's like freaking out. Fall 2021, that was a special year. That was the first year of COVID, so that would have been like the 2020 year of people applying. And then they basically released a batch of admissions, only acceptances. It was like January 15th. And then at the end of January, they released nothing but denials, okay? So then it was like this literal bloodbath. So today, I'm really thankful that like, and this is what I was telling students in previous weeks, that like, no, like, genuinely there is still got to be like 12, 13, 14,000 admissions offers still have to go out. It's not going to be a bloodbath. Not everyone's going to get rejected. And again, many of my clients have gotten in. But the really crappy thing is UT released those decisions like unexpectedly during a school day rather than the evening. So there was just like, everyone is on Zoom. Everyone's checking their email, getting their decisions back at the same time. And then UT has done that in previous cycles where they would release outcomes during the school day, like on Wednesday at lunch. So like counselors, teachers had no idea that this was coming. And 2021, they also accepted a record number of people off appeals, and then like the next year, like nobody got in off appeals. So yeah, and then that was the same year they admitted students who they had rejected, and then they admitted them again. And then they also canceled a bunch of international applications, just like completely unexpectedly. And they were also like 3 weeks late releasing transfer decisions. So like that 2020 cycle was really special. Also for honors this year, no one's released any honors. They do their own thing. Honors programs historically have released like all the way throughout February, and even after March 1st in some instances, which was UT's like previous guarantee. Let me see. Yeah, last year transfers came out. Supposed to be June 15th. It said that on the website. Like June 20th rolled around, no one had got any information, and then like UT sneakily changed their admissions page to read like mid to late June, and then someone used the Wayback Machine to see timestamp exactly when the website changed, and they had altered it like after June 15th. Didn't communicate it to anybody. Didn't communicate it on social media. Nothing. Yeah. Also, there's always this what some people on Reddit called My Status Portal Astrology, where you have this RIS or financial aid pages that will change in some ways, or it'll read a glitch, or there was even students on like February 6th and 7th this year who like were already given liberal arts or whatever their top 6% choice was. And so they already knew in advance that they weren't going to get in. And I was like, I don't know what that means. But then there's lots of people that followed up with me. And I'm also seeing on Reddit that like, that did mean that they were denied. And so the portal astrology, or like I call it reading the admissions tea leaves, like I don't know what's going on with that. I still have no idea. It's been happening since like 2021, I think. Yeah, but anyway, look, I'm never going to understand why UT Admissions, which is like the flagship institution of one of the largest and most prosperous states in the United States, just like can't predictably and reliably communicate to the public and release decisions in a sensible way. Like University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, California, like almost all of these universities who have even more applicants than UT just like do this in a normal way, and I just can't figure out why. And what's equally frustrating is UT social media channels and their mailing list broadcasts. They're completely useless in communicating information that the public needs to know, because the objective of their social media presence is to build their brand and persuade high-achieving students to enroll at UT who get in, rather than say the Ivy League or Stanford or U Chicago or whatever. And so it's all about persuasion rather than information, and that's why people come to blogs like mine or TikTok, or they look at alternative sources, because, yeah, and that just leads to a lot of misinformation and speculation. And UT's not alone. Like most universities have become less transparent over the last decade with regards to their data, how they communicate to the public. And for that reason, I argued in my 2021 book, Surviving the College Admissions Madness, that elite universities just like straight up don't care about their applicants. They know they're going to make their numbers every year because they receive way more than enough applications to fill their spots. They're not incentivized to care. Whereas those small private schools or like regional public universities, they have a real incentive to hustle to get those butts into seats. And so they're a lot more proactive with their recruitment and their concierge to the public. And so this is just all to say that like the application admissions process, it just like sucks. Okay, like it's terrible. I wrote a 500-page book, Admissions Madness, about it, and I'm genuinely sorry you'll have to go through this. It happens every single year, and the amount of like unnecessary suffering and anxiety from that lack of transparency and just like come straight up dropping the ball, I think it's just like turning around and kicking the ball in your net every single time, every single year. And so, yeah, that's my soapbox. So let's like talk about moving forward. Like I say, if you want to join the waitlist, join the waitlist. I wouldn't hold out hopes that UT is going to be an option for you for fall of 2025, but join it if you wish. That academic update thing is probably not going to make any difference. CAP, let's talk about coordinated admissions programs. So CAP can be a good option, okay, if you are a student who is cool with a non-STEM major. So CAP guarantees liberal arts if you have a 3.2 GPA at a UT system school. You must enroll at that UT system school through the Coordinated Admissions Program portal. That portal will open up on a specific day. I don't know the exact day this year, but it should open up in a few weeks. And if you want a desirable university like Arlington or San Antonio, it fills up literally within 5 minutes. It's like Beyonce level to Taylor Swift, like getting tickets to a concert. Like you have to be all hands on deck, like refreshing an hour before. Yeah, and you have to like be on it. So if you want CAP at San Antonio or Arlington, you need to be on top of that. CAP is not a good fit if you want STEM or business. CAP does not offer any advantages for enrolling or applying to those non-liberal arts majors. It doesn't matter. Yeah, there's no benefit. Yeah, so you might want to consider enrolling at a university where you have a guaranteed pathway to finishing your preferred major. So if that's business or engineering or computer science, consider A&M or UT Dallas or University of Houston, because yeah, CAP is not a good fit for you. CAP is also not a good fit if you have a whole bunch of hours from AP or dual credit, especially dual credit, because you can't like unclaim dual credit classes. So if you have more than say 30 hours of college, CAP may not be a good fit because there are some fairly rigid restrictions on what CAP courses you're allowed to take. I believe they also require you to take some summer school. They required it 1 year and then made it an option. So you'll have to see. So CAP is really, really particular, but again, it can be great if you want liberal arts, or if you eventually want to transfer into like social work or something, some of those less competitive major changes at UT, CAP can be a good fit. If you have any questions about CAP, feel free to email me. Okay, let's talk about major changes in internal transferring at UT for those top 6% applicants who did not gain ECE or computer science or nursing or whatever. Changing your major at UT is really, really difficult. It is not guaranteed. Even if you have a UT GPA of a 4.0 and you want business or computer science or mechanical engineering, those spaces are not guaranteed. I want to really emphasize that. So I would strongly caution about enrolling at UT for liberal arts or some other non-STEM major with the intent to transfer to UT. Again, better to go to A&M for general engineering, UTD for business, or U of H or whatever school. It's going to be a little different for every program. I won't get into the weeds of internal changes. I'll have a link in the description of this video with everything I know about internal changing. But I even know of UT academic advisors or admissions counselors that also give that same advice. So yeah, just really be careful about enrolling at UT if you didn't get your major. One nice thing about UT though is they do make it very easy to complement your studies with minors and certificates. That's one thing UT is actually really, really good about. So it's very hard to change your major. It's not always easy to declare a double major, but it is easier to kind of piece together a bit of a bespoke degree plan. External transfer. Okay, so external transfer is if you go to a 2-year community college, a 4-year university with the intent to transfer to UT. It's a totally different process. It doesn't depend on anything from your high school credentials like your current or like recent decision, your class rank, your SAT, ACT. It's kind of like a fresh start. The only way it's not is if you have dual credit. So some students will have dual credit and those grades will not be A's, and that unfortunately will count towards your external transfer GPA, so that is a factor to consider. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter if you go to ACC. That doesn't provide any advantages. I'm going to link a blog post as well about that common misconception. UT also doesn't care if you go to a private school, a public school, a UT system school. All that they care about is that you have your grades at your current institution. So in some ways transfer is more straightforward because it's that single variable of the college GPA rather than this combination of like rank and like does my school rank or not, or weighted GPA or not, and also SAT. So transfer is a little more straightforward. It's still quite competitive. Transferring into computer science, almost impossible. Transferring into architecture, almost impossible. Transferring into nursing, literally impossible. I had a UT nursing former recently retired staff member reach out to me on exactly that question, and she was also like, if you want UT nursing and you did not get it as a high school senior, do not plan on getting a nursing degree from UT. And anyway, like nursing, there's such a nursing shortage that you're just better off just getting the degree because you're going to be super employable regardless. And so I will link my external transfer guide in the description of this video as well. I'm also going to keep an eye out to see if there are any appeals, but it seems like appeals maybe like gracefully, hopefully, like we don't have to mess with that this year. I never help people with appeals, and if you want to receive assistance on internal transfer or external transfer, I only do that after you've received at least one semester of post-high school, university, or college grades. So it's been a big video for me. My electrician is literally like waving at me from the video or like from the other side of the class, so I need to go see what's going on with my house. So yeah, a little bit of stress over here as well. Like I say, I'm very excited to have those new videos this year. If you have any questions, email me directly at kevin@texadmissions.com. Like, I don't really look at my YouTube comment section. I'm not on social media. I'm pretty like tech, agnostic at this point. So kevin@texadmissions.com is the best way to reach me. And for those of you who got admitted, congratulations. For those of you who didn't, I hope you find a great enrollment option for fall 2025. And please reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.